Considering moving to Colorado? Well, you've come to the right place, because today I'm going to be talking about the 13 pros and the 13 cons of living in Colorado, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, my name is Landon Bellum. I am the marketing manager and an associate broker with Landlocked State, which is a real estate brokerage located in Colorado, just south of Denver and Castle Rock. Today, like I said, we're talking about the pros and cons, 13 of each, to help you determine if living in Colorado is a good fit for you. Now keep in mind, at Landlocked State, we do help anybody in the Colorado area with any real estate needs, so if you need anything, feel free to visit our website or comment below and we'll help you out with what you need. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the 13 pros of living in Colorado. Starting off with number one, Colorado has great homes, great communities, and great neighborhoods to live in. Now on this channel, I've gone through and broken down tons of Colorado cities with the best neighborhoods, best homes, best places to live. So anything from Castle Rock to Parker to Highlands Ranch, and I've got a ton more videos on the way. So like I've said, I have broken down tons of the best areas, the great places to live here in this beautiful state. And what I would just like to say for this pro is that there are beautiful communities, lots of new builds, lots of old historic builds, and places to live here in the state. So that's what comes in at number one on our list of living in Colorado as a pro. There's great places to live here. Number two, the second pro on our list is that Colorado has less extreme weather than other states. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, right now, I don't know what temperature it is. It's got to be in the 60s. We're in the middle of, let's see, today's like March 1st. So this is March. This is what March looks like. This is what March can feel like. The winters aren't that harsh here, surprisingly. I've lived in Idaho. I've lived in other places that are extremely cold. Colorado isn't that way. Sure, it will get cold. Last week, like even just a few days ago, it was 0 degrees outside. But I know that a lot of places like Chicago and Minnesota and these other states can get frigid and stay frigid, and they don't change. So Colorado, winters are so less extreme. Sure, you'll get the cold days. Sure, you'll get the snow. But you'll have sunny days and you'll have beautiful days in the midst of the winters. Summers rarely gets into the 90s, mainly the 80s, 70s as well. So summers are beautiful, and falls and springs are just happy mediums of both. So weather is way less extreme here in Colorado than it is in other states, which I am a big fan of. Number three on our list is that Colorado has great medical care, and not only is the medical care here great, but it's affordable. You'll notice on the cost of living index for Colorado that healthcare is one of the more affordable things. Most things in Colorado are more expensive, like housing, and we'll talk about that in the cons. But things like healthcare are actually more affordable here in Colorado than in the national average. There are great hospitals here, and there are hospitals everywhere. Each city has like 5 different urgent cares. Just know that medical care here in Colorado is solid. Number 4 on our list of pros of living in Colorado is that this is a very educated state. What do I mean by that? Well, it ranked as number 5 out of the 50 states in terms of education. There are great schools, great school districts here in Colorado. Cherry Creek School District and Cheyenne Mountain District 12 are incredible, so good. So keep that in mind. There are really, really good school districts, great schools, all the way from pre-K to graduating from high school to going to college. Colorado has a fantastic school system. Number 5 on our list of pros of Colorado, I'm big into geography. I really like the fact that Colorado is a centralized state. I believe this is why Denver International Airport is one of the most used airports in the world, because it's just located in more or less the middle of the United States. There's tons of great states and great areas and great things around Colorado to go to, a few of which are Arizona, Utah, Wyoming, I guess, has some cool stuff, but you're not that far from California. You're not that far from some other Midwest states on the east side of Colorado. So keep that in mind. That's a pro for me for sure, is that Colorado is very centralized. I love that. Going back to weather for a little bit, as our 6th pro of living in Colorado, Colorado has 4 distinct seasons. Now, we already talked about that the weather in Colorado isn't as severe as it is in other states. And that's partially because of this, 4 distinct seasons. You get a summer, you get a fall, you get a winter, and you get a spring. And they're all prevalent. They're all there. You can feel, when you're in each one, and it's awesome. I know a lot of other states in the US, especially if you go south. You don't really feel winters as much. You don't get the snow. You don't get 4 prevalent seasons. And that's the case in many states. So I really love that about Colorado. 4 distinct seasons is something that you don't get in many parts of the world, and like I said, in other parts of the United States. So I think that's pretty sweet. Coming in at our 7th pro of living in Colorado, there are really unique restaurants here. For example, some of the really popular dishes in Colorado are green chili. You'll see green chili burgers and green chili recipes all over the state. Rocky Mountain oysters, that's a famous one. I'll let you look that up on your own. That's more of a joke though, because a lot of people do not care for that at all. It's kind of gross. But what I will say is Colorado may not be as known for its food and culinary arts, I guess I should say, as like Chicago and New York. But what I will say is that if you come here, you will find tasty food. You'll find unique places to eat, especially Hispanic restaurants. You get a lot of great, authentic Hispanic restaurants here as well. So keep that in mind. One of personally my favorite things about Colorado, especially as far as Western states go, are the sports teams. You get a professional football team in the NFL, you get a professional hockey team, a professional soccer team. You used to have 2 professional lacrosse teams, but now they kind of re-changed some things with the professional lacrosse leagues. Professional basketball team, professional baseball team, and gosh, I'm sure there's more than that, but that's what's really cool about Colorado is you get competitive, not only professional teams, but competitive teams. We know that the Broncos have won Super Bowls, and the other sports teams that I mentioned, they are very competitive. They do well. So if you love sports and you want to move to a state where you can rep the sports teams and feel confident that they're going to perform well, maybe the Broncos haven't done well since Peyton Manning left. That's another story. But seriously though, sports teams here, it's awesome. Like if you go over to Utah, just the neighboring state, sure, you have a professional basketball team, but you don't have really anything else. I think that's a bummer with a lot of these states. Colorado has it all. That's awesome to me. Number 9 of pros of living in Colorado is that it's a business-friendly place. It's a great place to open up a business. You see a lot of people coming here, starting new businesses, whether it be restaurants or anything, any type of business. They do well here. This is a growing state. There's a lot of new developments, a lot of new people living here, and it's opening up a lot of opportunities for business. So it's a business-friendly state, lots of cool opportunities for anyone who's coming here. And number 10 on our list of pros of living in Colorado ties into number 9. The economy here is booming. And I think that's why so many people are moving here, because it is just stable. Colorado has a stable economy. It's a stable place to live, and it's not going anywhere. So far as we can see, Colorado's economy is solid, rock solid. Lots of great opportunities here for jobs, job openings, and businesses like we talked about in the last pro. Number 11, going back to the cost of living, most things in Colorado, like I said, in terms of housing and things, are expensive. But what did I say earlier? Medical care is more affordable here in Colorado, and taxes are lower. That is a huge pro, especially if you hate paying taxes, you like having the extra dough in your pockets. Well, Colorado's taxes are much lower than many other states in the U.S. Tourism, coming in at the 12th pro, is a really big part of the Colorado economy. So, if you have family that's going to be coming out, or if you like to go and tour different places in the state that you live, see national parks, national monuments, things like that, Colorado has it. There's tons of great things to do, historic places to see, and places to be. I love that about the state. I'm personally not a beer drinker, but if you are, Colorado is the beer capital of the United States. So there you go. For our 13th pro, if that interests you, then maybe living in Colorado is a good fit for you. We know that not every state is perfect, and Colorado is no exception to that. Let's talk about the 13 cons of living in what I would call the great state of Colorado. This will help you determine if it really and truly is a good fit for you, especially since I've talked it up for the last 10 minutes, about the pros. Let's talk about the cons. First con, as I've mentioned multiple times, it has a high cost of living. Things like grocery, transportation, housing are just more expensive here in Colorado than they are in a lot of U.S. states. Number 2, heavy traffic. Now, the traffic here is not going to be anywhere as bad as it is in LA or Chicago or New York or some of these huge cities. But man, the traffic is bad, and it's getting worse, especially in the Denver metro area, I-25, 225, I-70. It's pretty bad. Yeah, it'll delay you. It'll make your commute a little bit longer than you want it to be. And it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. So that's our second con. Our third con, this one is obvious if you've ever looked at a map, but Colorado is a landlocked state. You don't aren't anywhere close to the beach. And that's why I put it on, because some states are landlocked, but you could drive over state borders and get to a beach, get to the ocean and see that beautiful place. You can't in Colorado. The closest ocean is probably California, which is, gosh, I don't know, 20-hour drive. I don't know, even off the top of my head, but it's a landlocked city. You're not gonna get any ocean views from this state. Number 4, our fourth con of living in Colorado, is that the housing market is extremely competitive. Housing has been competitive over the last couple of years everywhere in the United States, but Colorado housing is much more expensive than a lot of states in the US. For example, the median home price in the US typically is around $290,000. In Colorado, it's $488,000, so it's almost double that of the median home price of the nation. And it's just competitive. You know, we have people here that are trying to buy a home and they just get outbid by people who are coming from California wanting to move to Colorado and buying stuff in cash. So a lot of people are seeing the pros of living in Colorado and moving here in droves, and it's making it a very competitive place to find living in, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. Very difficult. My wife and I just moved here to Parker, which is where I am right now. It's a southeast Denver suburb, and it was very tough to find a place that we could afford and that we could actually get. Now, talking about housing, this is a little funny, but it sucks. Talking about Colorado cons. North-facing houses. I don't know if this is something that people in other states talk about, but if your house faces north and it snows and you don't shovel it right away, that snow in your yard and on your driveway will never melt. Because if it faces north, it will never get the sun on your driveway or on your yard, and that snow will stay for the whole winter season. Even if it's sunny, right now it's March 1st, it's been, you know, super cold all week, but it's sunny and beautiful today. That's not going to take care of a north-facing house snow. So if you move here, it is a huge con if you buy a house that faces north. Buy a house that faces any other direction, and you will be happy. Number 6, now if you watch the news over the last few years, you've probably heard about Colorado forest fires. It happens a lot in California, and it happens a lot here. It's a very dry state. We'll talk about that in a further con, but that makes it so that in the wintertime especially, fires are prevalent and they are destructive. It's just a few months ago that in Boulder, Colorado, tons of homes and families and lives and things were ruined by forest fires. So it's a huge con. Number 7, jumping back to, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Jumping back to traffic, I guess. A lot of people think like, oh, the mountains are right there. I can see them. Let's go skiing. Yeah, kind of. You know, in Utah, I think, for example, you can get to the mountains in your favorite ski resort in within 30 minutes, within 20 minutes maybe. In Colorado, it's a lot farther than it looks. You have to really go up those mountains to get to where you want to be. That's not where the con is, though. The con is that the traffic in the Rocky Mountains, you know, when you're going up or coming home from camping or skiing or whatever you were doing there, is awful. It is so bad. You can be stuck on I-70 in the middle of the Rocky Mountains for hours. If there's even a slight snowstorm or even an accident, it will mess you up. The traffic in the Rocky Mountains is disgusting. Number 8, we alluded to this, but Colorado is one of the driest states in the United States. In fact, a lot of people here tend to brag that Colorado is drier than Phoenix, Arizona, which you probably wouldn't expect, but it's true. Colorado is very dry. Even me, I'm a Colorado native. My hands dry up so fast in the wintertime especially. So it's something that you never really fully adapt to and get used to. It's just dry here. So be prepared to buy extra lotion if you live in Colorado. Going along with that, Colorado has a very high altitude. There's a reason that the capital, Denver, is called the Mile High City. It's a mile high. High above sea level. You know, one of the popular things here in Colorado is climbing 14ers, which if you haven't heard of what that term is, it's a mountain that's over 14,000 feet high. There's over 50 of them here in Colorado. So elevation is high everywhere in the state. And that can lead to altitude sickness. It can lead to all sorts of things, even if you are a native. My father-in-law came back from the mountains the other day, was feeling super sick and had altitude sickness. So it's something that just happens, which leads directly into number 10, deadly sunburns. That's the 10th con of living in Colorado. The sunburns that you can get in this state are brutal. And a lot of the times, like, you're not even feeling it. It's like 60 degrees out right now, but if I don't go in soon, I'm gonna have sunburns in the middle of the winter here because the altitude is so high and you're closer to the sun and you don't expect it, you don't feel it, but then you go home and you're burned up and you're red. So the sunburns here can be pretty awful. Number 11, I talked about how Colorado weather isn't as extreme as other states. That being said, there are still snowy winters. You will still see blizzards here. So if you hate the snow, if you despise the snow, that's going to be a huge con for you. It might not be the right place for you. Now, like I said, this is the middle of the winter right now. It's the sunniest state. Colorado's one of the sunniest states. It has 300 days on average of sun, which is more than the state of Florida, which is the sunny state. So keep that in mind. It's not going to be the worst, but if you do hate the snow, Colorado does get a lot of snow. Number 12, good segue from snowy, icy roads. Now what happens is you'll have days like this in the winter. It snowed a couple days ago. The sun comes out, melts all that snow away, and then what happens? The roads are completely soaked, completely wet. The night comes and turns all of that melted snow into black ice. So Colorado has super icy roads. That's a huge con. I hate it. Even Colorado natives and people who are used to driving in the snow will still get in accidents because it gets icy and it's unpredictable. And for our last con of living in Colorado, we're going to talk about the windy season. I hate the wind. Personally, it's my least favorite thing, least favorite type of weather that's out there is wind. And there's a pretty brutal windy season here where it'll blow your, the tables and chairs right off your patio, break stuff, break your flowers, break your pots, whatever. So yeah, it does get really windy here. It's not all year long, but when that windy season comes, it is brutal. It's the worst. I hate it. So that's a big con even for me, who should be used to it by now, but I'm not, and I will never be. But anyways, that's going to wrap up our 13 pros and our 13 cons of living in the great state of Colorado. What did you think of this list? Comment below what you thought about these 13 pros and these 13 cons. What are you concerned about, and what are you looking forward to in Colorado? Subscribe to the channel, to the Modest State channel, if you haven't yet, because we got a lot of cool content, a lot of cool videos that will provide you a lot of value with not only living in Colorado, but understanding the Colorado housing market. If you have any housing or real estate needs, comment below, comment anywhere on our channel, or reach out to us on our website and we'll help you out. Again, my name is Landon. Loved having you on this video. We got lots of cool stuff coming. We'll see you on the next one.